Hi and welcome. It's so good to have you here. I'm here to chat with you today about screen time solutions for the holidays. And when we're talking about winter break, it's oftentimes a blend of emotions that come up. First, we're excited potentially about the time we'll have together, or maybe looking forward to certain traditions that your family has, etc. But then also, I've been hearing from folks that they have a sense of dread. And the dread is sometimes mild, sometimes moderate, sometimes severe, about having so much time that's unstructured and out of the regular routines with kids. Now, in my Family Foundations Immersion program, which, by the way, we're starting a cohort in January, and there are spots available if that's something you'd be interested in, I highly recommend that you get into my DMs, send an email to raisingourresilience@gmail.com, or go check out vanessacallahan.com for more information. We'd love for you to consider spending a year in mentorship with other families. And in our program, what we do talk about sort of the many nuances of navigating winter break or any other vacation times like a spring break or summer break, and how when we're out of routine, we really need to pay close attention to certain needs and really help get the expectations nice and clear, and also figure out where we're going to be flexible, where we're going to adapt. And one of the hot topics is screen time. So that's why I'm here with you today, to check out this topic with you and give you some tips. Now, what I don't want you to do is to feel like there's no other opportunity for kids to unwind than to have screen time. And that's oftentimes sort of a misnomer or a mistake that parents can make. So the one thing I want you to avoid is kind of getting into this trap that many of you complained you got into during COVID, where the only way you could get some downtime or sort of keep the kids busy is through devices. So one of the first things I want you to do before we dive into my top tips, but one of the first things I want you to do, if you don't do anything else, is to hang with your kids, and depending on their reading level, depending on the level of participation you get, make a list of activities that kids will be inspired to check out during these winter months. So it could be things like related to the season, right? So it's cold weather, things that are cold weather oriented, like snuggling up with hot cocoa, lighting a fire in the fireplace, going on a rainy or wet or snowy walk, inventorying your ski gear or your snowboarding gear or your sledding gear, and getting it ready and looking at the calendar and planning a snow trip. These are all seasonally related, and it helps the kids to start to get grounded into what's available in the season that is up and coming or they're immersed in now. So that can just inspire them to have other ideas in mind than screen time. Because what screen time does is it really, screen time likes screen time, and then likes more screen time, and then likes more screen time. Because oftentimes, that hit the next episode button, it just automatically loads. There's a lot built into games also to keep people in the game and continuing to play. And so oftentimes the children start to lose sense of what else is available, because they really are compelled and even compulsory about wanting to do the next thing on screens. So make that list, play with winter activities. And in a moment here, at the end, I can actually share with you a list of some possible winter activities that I think many of your families will enjoy. So I'll be pulling that up and sharing it with you in a few moments here. In the meantime, here are some hot tips about limiting screen time in general. Now, why would I do this? Why would I give you the general advice? Well, because it still applies during the winter break. But as I give you this general advice, I'll be refining it based on some things that I've noticed can really make or break these tips working or not working. I'm assuming that that's something you would all be okay with for giving you my insights, because you can go out and Google this. You can search for winter activity tips, and you can search for limiting screen time. But it's not quite the same as having somebody sort of share with you from what they've seen really work or not work for folks. Okay. So I want to make sure I give you a chance to experience that with me. As you know, I'm a coach, so I like to also give specific advice. So if you're here as an attendee or listening or even listening to the recording, always feel free to drop a comment in the chat addressed to me, ask a question. If it's possible, tag me from the Facebook group. If it's not possible, I'll still get a notification on YouTube and other places. So please feel free to, engage in this, ask a question, tell me your toughest thing. I love it. Bring it on. Bring me your easy, medium, and hard problems. I'm here for all of it. Okay. All right. So what is advised when it comes to, getting this screen time moving in the right direction? Well, I'm going to be pulling from Jane Nelson's Positive Discipline Tools. It's a great book that has very practical advice. And I'm going to help it come alive off the page. So just to shout out, credit Jane Nelson, limiting screen time chapter in her Positive Discipline Parenting Tools. A few things that guidelines that she puts out right at the co-authors put out right at the beginning is that for young children, always be careful about making the TV or devices the babysitter. Like make sure you have a lot of different ways that you're separating with kids and helping them practice self-managing, and also use real care providing, like whether that's a trade of a play date. A lot of times the social friction of having to actually call somebody and set a date and set a time and make a plan seems harder, right, than just turning on the TV or turning on the screens. However, the getting kids out of that habit is even harder than that. So really make that effort, and if you're listening to this right now, get on your phone and text 3 people, or call 3 people, drop 3 emails, or write down 3 ideas that come to mind about alternatives for screen time as caregiving and, possible play date exchanges, things like that. Relatives that you could ask, can we have an hour? Can you take my kid for an hour to the park? Do it, follow through, think about who in your life would love an hour with your kid. There are more people on that roster than most of us realize until we start making a list. The other thing is it can be very helpful to make sure that devices don't end up in kids' rooms if it's possible. Now, some of us are working with very small spaces, and that's the only way you can kind of manage. But if you can, try to keep the computers, cell phones, TVs, iPads, and things outside of children's rooms, or at least outside of children's physical play spaces. So their place that they rest and the place that they, maybe have some other options of things that they could be doing. So, putting a TV right next to like the Lego set and the building blocks and the puzzle shelf and all those things, it does kind of put them in competition. And the other thing is that if kids get used to using devices in their rooms where they usually rest and sleep, oftentimes there'll be a strong association and they'll have a harder time settling down in their beds without a device. And you don't want that for sleep training and just general sleep habits. Okay. So 3, that's the second one. The third one is go ahead and make agreements with children about their screen time usage. How much TV, how many video games, how much texting, how much internet time is reasonable. If you haven't had this conversation, you're going to really want to lean into this topic. And it's not about letting them decide. And it's also not about just dropping the expectations. Let it be mildly collaborative. And why I say mildly is that screen time like screen time. So if you allow that momentum to carry it forward, they will always be asking for more. So this is one of those ones where you're mildly collaborative, where you might say, well, I'm thinking either 30 minutes or 45 minutes after school, when you're comfortable with either one, right? And let them say. And then the other piece I like to say to parents, and I've even talked to kids about this directly in my 15 years of experience with kids directly, and then also step parenting, is that I will have them start to tune into what is their like stickiest, like when does it get sticky? Because oftentimes kids can't separate from screens in a certain window. Like they've watched enough to be satisfied, like maybe at the end of an episode, but if they watch 2 episodes, then they're really stuck in there. And it's hard for them to imagine anything else good in the world. So, perhaps there's this range that is kind of that you can talk about. And it's what I like about this question is, when does it start to feel sticky? Is that it's kind of a metaphor that they can usually wrap their head around, but also it starts to build in some self-awareness. Because at the end of the day, we don't just want to limit their screen time. We want them to make wise choices and have very healthy screen time hygiene, like device hygiene, media hygiene, right? So they know how to take care of themselves, just like they know how to take care of their teeth and their physical body and bathing and things like that. We want them to be able to take care of that themselves in the sense of the balance, right, between screen time and not screen time. And then what I already talked about is already in here, the brainstorming fun activities. And I promise I'll show you that at the end. But we have about 5 more minutes. Stay with me for some more ideas. So first, just no TV as a babysitter as much as possible. No TV in devices in their best play space and their beds. And if you can, not in their room at all, if you have that amount of space and it works. And then last, making agreements together that are at least mildly collaborative, keeping in mind that sticky time, like that range that seems to work. Okay. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about is, what happens when you're in a situation where, they start to say, you do it all right. Like you set up the agreement, you follow through on your part by, reminding them and reminding them, helping them set a timer. It's everything seems to be going well. And then it's that time for the kid to turn off the device. And this is often where everybody goes, oh no, here comes the power struggle at times. So here's what I have to say about it. It doesn't always have to be a power struggle. And if you really feel that you've done everything you can to set this up for success, you have alternative activities ready to go, that they have some input into what they are, right? That brainstormed list. You have been clear about what the expectations are. You've even included their collaboration mildly about what the limits are. You've maybe even given them a tool to, like really watch the time, whether it's setting a timer or, very clear about this is a 30-minute episode. When it ends, it's over. And then it still doesn't go according to plan in the sense that they don't hold up their end of the bargain. Now they're fighting it. Now you're in a power struggle. Here's what I would say, and I very much agree with what Jane Nelson would say. She says, stick to plans even when children cry and scream in protest. And I have to tell you, we have to almost like trick ourselves by talking ourselves through this, because our nervous system mirrors our environment. So if a kid is screaming and crying, we can't help but be activated often that something must be terribly wrong and we must have absolutely made a mistake here, right? And a lot of times what parents need support with in my world where I work with them is how to not lose it when your kids lose it, how to sort of regain your composure, and then how to justify following through even when the child is showing so many signs of distress. Because usually, like, let's say you're giving a bottle to a baby, and as soon as they put the nipple to their mouth of the bottle, they scream in pain. You're immediately going to be like, oh no, something must be wrong with this nipple, or the milk is too hot or something, right? Or something's hurt in their mouth, like something maybe, right? So you kind of check it out. What I'm telling you is that that reaction is very natural. So just notice when it comes up and know that it's actually okay to let everyone have their feelings about the screen time ending, and then do it anyway. Follow through. Because whether you like it or not, every time, and I'm not saying you ruin it if you've done it already, but every time you let that reaction change the plan, you're giving the child information about what is or isn't a real limit and what is or isn't up for negotiation. So if you kindly, firmly, gently, and clearly follow through, it doesn't mean abandon them and shame them or tell them their feelings are wrong, right? You're like letting them have their feelings, and you might even use some emotion coaching, which I share, we practice a lot with my clients, but I've shared in this Facebook group before and on YouTube, and in this sort of Raising Our Resilience broader community, where you let them know you get it, you tell them something that makes sense about it. Oh, I know sometimes it's really hard to separate from things you're enjoying. However, this is our agreement. And it's my job, and you can state it, my job to follow through on my part, which is to say when it's done, and to even take away the device if you're not able to turn it off yourself. Remember that, honey? Oh, you don't remember? Okay, well, that's what our agreement is. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and take the device unless you're ready to turn it off yourself. So you follow through. Okay. These are all important pieces that, and the reason why I said, if you've already made this agreement and you already did your best to create alternative activities and make a plan for what they're doing after screen time. If you set everything up for success and they still have a bad reaction, this is just life playing out. This is a young person with limited life experience trying to figure out power, trying to figure out influence, trying to figure out even attention, and how things work. And they are also maybe just having genuine emotions, and that's okay. It doesn't change the agreement, though. You can say, listen, if this is so important to you, we can revisit this at the end of a certain period of time, like at the end of the week, but we're going to stick with our plan for the rest of the week. They need to know that you mean what you say. Otherwise, those mildly collaborative conversations become less meaningful. And honestly, it kind of puts them in a bit of an inappropriate role of being more in charge than they should be. Because devices are powerful. Programming is powerful. It's designed to get our eyeballs on the content for as long as possible. And we know this. And so we've got to find the strength within ourselves to put the limits in where they are. Now, the reason I said if you've done all those things is that the other side can be true. So that's being like way too supportive and not demanding enough is the example I'm trying to get away from there. Now, what about being too demanding without being supportive enough? Well, that would be just arbitrarily creating a time limit and then just dropping the hammer when they don't follow it. And it's not giving them the chance to acclimate to your expectations. And in some sense, it's unfair to them. And that they almost have a right to be upset because they weren't involved. And you start to get into the do what I say because I said so. And that system is very fragile. And the reason why is when you're not present, they don't have inner guidance about why these limits exist, or they don't have a sense of responsibility to them. So you'll get a lot of sneaking, lying, cheating, and possibly really risky, rebellious behaviors as stakes get higher and the kids get older. So as much as possible, you want to meet that middle between support and demand. And if that's something you're interested in exploring parenting styles, I geek out on that stuff. I actually give a bonus session to a lot of my clients when they start just about that. So we can explore, where do you go at your best? Where do you go at your worst? What did you grow up with? And how is that influencing your current parenting style? And where do you want to go with that? It's been really helpful for a lot of folks. Again, DM me if you're interested in checking out the cohort. It is starting in January, so we're enrolling now. And this can be some bonus time for you before we head to the holidays, where you can get some support going into the holidays about this and other questions you may have. Okay, last couple things. Screens are here to stay, and they are addictive. And as much as we can tell from the research, it's kind of an undeniable thing at this point. So if you've been avoiding creating some structure around this, you're just kicking a can down the road. I'll say it again, you're just kicking a can down the road. So it's time, if you haven't gotten to this yet, no time better than the present, okay? Guidelines are imperative for the development of healthy minds and habits, and it is our job, it's our charge, I should say, as the adults to assist with the creation of these guidelines, okay, and healthy habits. The tool is to, or sorry, the goal is to eliminate, or sorry, the goal is to limit, not eliminate. So when you make that plan, you're talking more about limiting instead, and it's not about no, it's about limit. Like how can we limit this within a reasonable amount? And one of the best ways to limit screen time is to plan activities that don't include screens and help them expand their menu of options of things that they enjoy. So be willing to even, do things that they didn't brainstorm specifically. Okay. And that's where we're going to finish, is on some ideas of some ways to like some fun activities that you could possibly be bringing in to your winter time. Okay. So I've just got a cute little list. It's not a big deal, but it's sweet, and it just might help you have a chance to like wrap your head around a few ideas for today. So let me get that up on the screen for you. There we go. And yeah, and think about what did you enjoy as a kid? What was something that you liked to do when you were little? For example, this is from Happy Hustle Design Company, just something I pulled off the internet, but it's cute. It's like, drink some hot cocoa, see the lights, count your blessings, make a craft, bake some cookies, decorate, play a board game, read a story, a holiday story, any holidays that they either celebrate or they don't, so they can understand the diversity of their community and ways that people celebrate winter. Watch some Christmas or other holiday or winter movies, things that cozy up with something that you really enjoy, like a story or a book. Give a gift, build a blanket fort, or volunteer. So here's just some ideas that you could possibly check out as you're thinking about ways of bringing in non-screen based activities. So there's only one on there that has screens, right? It's the movie. Maybe you have to start with that one and work in the rest. But even consider making a little checklist and being like, did we do all these things over the winter break? And go to the list. What do we have left? What haven't we done yet? Kids really actually enjoy those kinds of things. And if you have a teen, they can go find a meme themselves. They can go find an infographic themselves and be like, bring it to us. What did you find? And bring it to us, and we'll look at it and see which of these we can fit into our break. All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Enjoy the next weeks as you're rolling into the winter holiday. I believe next week is an Ask Me Anything, but to be announced, and we'll be back together. Again, don't hesitate. If you feel like it's time finally for you to invest some time, some energy, and some resources into developing your parenting toolbox alongside other big-hearted families who are very dedicated and have all this momentum going into their year. We're anticipating being full in our program this year. So this is an opportunity for you to get into the program, the cohort starting in January, before it starts, while there's still space. And it also gives you a chance to get to know the community and the coaches, and have some bonus time with us. So I do invite you to consider, checking out our immersion program. Consider being a part of this awesome cohort of people. We've got families from all over. I think we're in four different time zones now. So wherever you are, you're not too far. We can bring you in and have this experience in the new year. So if that's you and it's you, reach out, drop a comment, say, I'm curious. Let's set up a time to chat, and with no pressure, would love to give you a gift of a coaching session. I'll send you a quiz where you can look at your strengths. We can look over what areas you might be struggling in, get you a learning plan, and then check in at the end of that time about whether it's your year to join the immersion. And with that, I say lots of love. See you next time. Bye for now.